My name is Joseph Farris. Quite a while ago, when I was turned 80 in 2004, I realized I had all these letters around I had never looked at, and I decided I better do something before my time runs out. And I put together a scrapbook primarily for my family, with no intention of publication. I don't think I would have turned it down, but I had no intention of it. And one day Susan happened to be visiting, and I don't know why I brought out probably showing off my book. And she took a look at it and said, "My God, this should be published." I of course laughed and said, "Nah." But she says, "Well, why don't you send me down one of the copies?" I had made 2 copies. I did, and it took a few months, and before I even knew it, I was working on a book. And we didn't complete it until, God, almost a year we worked on it. And we completed it last May. And then the real work began, selling it. Writing it was easy. And that's pretty much where we are now. We're just pushing the book, and I've had 1 book signing already, and I have several more lined up. And it's extraordinary, the BBC did an interview with me, and I've been getting all kinds of responses from it, from England, which is no surprise. And I got a lovely call Sunday from a history teacher in Minnesota or Missouri or somewhere out there. And he was very interested in the book, and he wanted to use it in his class. And so I did send him a signed copy. I was drawing all my life, long before I went into the service. In fact, I started when I was 7 or 8. And when I was first drafted in Fort Devens is where I was mustered in, I took drawing material with me, sketchbooks, ink, pens, and I had them throughout my career in the service. It seemed like every other letter I wrote was "send me art supplies." And it turned out I ended up being a squad leader, a machine gun squad leader, which meant that we had a Jeep to our disposal. So I was able to store all my material in the Jeep. The Jeep never made it to the front lines, of course. The fortunate guys stood behind, and when we came back, everything was there. My drawings were there, and I would take up. I made many drawings overseas, and a few when I came home, where my memories were still quite sharp. Obviously, the battle scenes I couldn't very well draw. I tried once. I said, "Would you stop everything for a moment?" And they wouldn't. So.
And the letters, these were letters you wrote to your family, and your family kept the letters?
Yes, I wrote home 400 plus letters, and they came home and they put them in a scrapbook. Isn't that interesting? A scrapbook. And when I came home, I saw there were 2 thick scrapbooks full, but I never read one of them until 2004. I just couldn't get myself to look at them, and the drawings were sort of stored away and mixed up with all my other work. And then when I decided to put the scrapbook together, I really pulled everything out. I was surprised how much I had. It's amazing how much material I had. I had sent home not only letters and drawings and watercolors, memorabilia, clips from publications, Stars and Stripes. And by the way, the first published work I ever had was in Stars and Stripes. I was deep in the war then, and I said, I have a good idea. Maybe I can join Andy Rooney in Stars and Stripes. And I submitted some cartoons to Stars and Stripes, hoping that they would say, "Wow, what a talent. Let's pull them out of the infantry and bring them in." They used one, that's the last I ever heard of them, back to the infantry, and that's where I remained.
When you looked at the letters in your sketches after all those years, did particularly strong memories come back that
Yes, I was absolutely astounded how they came back. It's interesting, speaking of that, I mentioned I had a book signing Sunday, and when the PowerPoint didn't work, I did a lot of ad-libbing. And I was telling them about the first battle, which I'm going to read about tonight, where my machine gun outfit lost track of the rifle. We lost contact with each other because our equipment was so heavy we couldn't keep up with it. Well, last night I had a dream about being lost in the mountains, and suddenly walking around, and I didn't know where I was, and I had 2 paths to take, but I made it. And I suddenly realized because of that discussion I'd had with the audience Sunday. So, yes, the memories came back rather strongly, and of course the letters helped. I also, when I first came home, I did a little writing about some of the major battles I was in. So I was able to embroider them and rewrite them all. And to this day, I'm remembering things I forgot for the book. So if they're lucky enough for a second edition, the book's going to be twice as large. Did Susan tell you that?
How do you feel about adding to the history of the war now?
Well, I'm delighted. As I've said a number of times, it's really the history from a common soldier's point of view. I wasn't a big hero or anything like that. When you see a band of brothers, all these people are extraordinary heroes, and I was just an ordinary soldier. And I sort of represent the common infantryman. And I say pointedly infantryman. I found out that for every one of us on the front lines, there were 10 service people behind us. So very few of us did the actual fighting. I would have gone back there if they let me, but they wouldn't. Well, I'm absolutely astounded by how many people have come up to me and said, "Thank you for your service." That surprised me thoroughly. But I guess they realize we're slowly disappearing. I understand 1,000 of us are dying every day. So we're becoming antiques now. And that kind of moved me when they did say that.